All crops depend on nutrients from the soil to develop and grow well. Examples of the major nutrients required by plants are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Most fields require chemical or mineral fertilizers to supply these nutrients in the quantity needed to support good yields. Legumes have the ability to convert nitrogen in the atmosphere into forms that can be used up by the plant in the soil. They are able to do this because they have some microorganisms that infect their roots and help them to achieve this. Unfortunately, only legumes have the ability to do this. Your maize crops cannot. The advantage of this ability to you is that you might not need to provide too much supplementary nitrogen to the crops and therefore need to focus on the phosphorus and potassium. That's the soya, cowpea, and groundnut will depend on heavily. Now let's get back to the nitrogen and the organisms in the roots that help in its fixation from the atmosphere into the soil. Soya and cowpea can obtain between 50 to 75% of the nitrogen they require for good growth if the organism that converts is well established and formed nodules on the roots. If this process is happening well, you will only need to supply little nitrogen fertilizers to get a very good yield. But sometimes, these organisms do not get well established on their own. That is where you come in. In this message, we are going to teach you about inoculation. This is the process you will use to ensure that these organisms or inoculants are present to help in trapping the nitrogen from the air. The following are the steps you are supposed to follow when applying inoculants to your seed. Remember that for every 1 kilogram of seed, you will need 5 grams of inoculants. Step 1. Put 1 kilogram of seeds into a container. 1 kilogram of seeds should be equivalent to half a normal bowl. Step 2. Prepare a sugar solution by pouring some sugar into lukewarm water in a bottle. Shake bottle well to form a good mixture. Step 3. Pour 4 bottle tops of the solution onto the seeds you have measured into the bowl. Step 4. Gently stir the seeds with a stick or your hand to make all the seeds wet. Step 5. Now measure 1 bottle top of inoculant and sprinkle onto your seeds. Step 6. Cover your container and swirl gently to cover seeds with inoculants. Step 7. Dry your inoculated seeds, preferably in the shade, for some time before you proceed to plant. The inoculants can be produced as a liquid, granular, or even as a powder, and can be used by applying them on the seeds before sowing. Because these are living organisms, they are only produced at the lab and have to be handled with care after you have purchased them. Note that you should only purchase the amounts you will need for a season when it is close to the start of the season, though you can sometimes buy and store them like fertilizers or other chemicals if only you can follow the instructions that come with them. Upon purchasing the inoculants, you will receive more instructions on how to handle them before applying them onto your seeds. After you have applied the inoculants to the seeds, do not wait for too long before sowing the inoculated seeds. When the seeds begin to germinate, the organisms called rhizobia invade the root hairs of the seedling and begin to multiply. Small balls, which contain the bacteria, will begin to form on the roots in the soil. Under the right field conditions, the first small balls should form within 3 weeks after the soya and cowpea seedlings have emerged. They become more visible as they increase in size. Between weeks 4 and 5, the organisms will begin the conversion of nitrogen from the air for use by the plants. Inoculation does not completely replace nitrogen fertilizer application because at best, nitrogen fixation can only provide about 75% of the nitrogen needed by the soya and cowpea plants. comparing the cost and benefits of inoculants to those of fertilizers, it is better to invest in inoculants in order to reduce your cost of production. You can apply small amounts of mineral nitrogen fertilizers to your fields between the first and fourth weeks when nitrogen fixation has not quite begun. But note that too much nitrogen fertilizer at this stage can suppress the positive effects of the inoculation and result in excessive vegetative growth. Inoculation is very strongly recommended if you will be cultivating an entirely new field. Also, if your field has not been cultivated with soya or cowpea for over 3 years, it is highly recommended that you adopt inoculation in the current season in order to achieve good yields. Inoculation is also highly recommended if your field has recently been flooded for over a week because floods create anaerobic conditions within the soil, which adversely affect any native rhizobia and make it difficult for soya and cowpea to grow well if not artificially inoculated. Inoculation is also a very new technology in northern Ghana, but people who have used it have seen very good results and improvements in their yields. Like all new things, you might not want to readily accept it, but it will surely boost your yields if you decide to use it. Thank you.